Hi everyone. I'm happy to have everyone here, and we'll basically be starting our class. And today's class would basically be based on what we gave as an assignment um, last week. So can you use the raise hand button if you were able to do the assignment? Can you use the raise hand button? If you were able to do the assignment, can you use the raise hand button? Anyone? I'm not seeing anyone's hand. Okay. Okay, I can see Mark. I can see Joe. I can see this text note taker. Is he also a participant? Then I can see Mark and Jojo anyways. So Mark and Jojo, can you I really, because today's class we really would be covering the assignment. I'll be re-implementing the assignment. Okay, Dennis also did the assignment. Great, great. So today's class will basically be covering the assignment, and we would re-implement everything. But is there anyone among us who is willing to speak about probably the challenges they faced or what they were able to learn while doing the assignment? Anyone? Okay, Matutu, please. Yeah, you can unmute your mic. Hello? 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 Uh, you are not mute. You are muted, Matutu. You are not unmuted, though. Okay, Stephanie, let's hear from Stephanie then. Let's hear from Stephanie then. Yeah, you can unmute your mic.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So I was able to complete. Should I
Hello?
explain?
Okay, okay, I can hear you now. You were saying?
Should I explain what I did? I said I was able to
Yes,
complete the crowdfunding and I tested it.
great, great,
So I
great,
should
great.
explain.
So, yes, yes. And what challenges did you go through while implementing it? Or did you go through any challenges?
Wait, I didn't get you
I said, did you go through any challenge while implementing it?
on it and solved it. I went to the Soroban
Challenges,
documentation.
challenges.
No, I didn't go through any challenges.
Can everyone hear me? IJ, can you hear me? IJ, can you hear me? Um, Stephanie is muted.
Yes,
IJ.
I can hear you.
Okay, okay, great. Yes, Stephanie, please. Can you give us a breakthrough of what you did and, you know?
Okay, I created a struct campaign, and in the struct it has creator, the person that is creating the campaign, the target amount, the current amount, the deadline, the campaign name, and contributors. Then I created a trait, 4 functions in it: campaign creation, contribution tracking, get campaign, and deadline check. Then I started the implementation from the campaign creation. Then I did the contribution tracking. It checks like how many people have contributed. So it's going to increase the current amount when any contributors contribute. Then we check the deadline that if the target is not met this if the target is not met before the deadline, okay, if the target is not met after the deadline, it's going to return everybody's money. Then I
Great.
tested it too. Then that's all.
And everything worked perfectly, right? Have you pushed your code to
No,
the organization?
no, I forgot. I was thinking if I should do it. Well, I can do it now.
Yes, please do it. And for every other person who has completed their own assignment too, please try to push your code to the organization, please. Let's do that. Let's do that. Great job, Stephanie. Great job, Stephanie. Proud to see you actually implemented it and even added the refund and all of that. Great job. So today we are going to implement it in class for those who were unable to implement it, or for anybody that wants to, compare my own coding style with their coding style and all of that. So we're going to re-implement it and yeah, basically. Um,
Hi.
I
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
okay.
I got off. My machine was running something in the background, so it hanged.
Okay. You have some.
So I didn't do the assignment. I was mainly getting errors. I installed Rust. I installed the target, but when I was trying to start the project by cargo install Soroban CLI, I kept getting an error, but it came to work over the weekend. Then when I was trying to cargo build the contract, also I was getting error. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Great. Well, today's as correction or solution to the assignment will definitely give you an edge. Definitely give you an edge. So yeah, you can just look towards the solution for today's classwork. So you can mute your mic.
Okay, just mute.
Yes, you can mute your mic.
Just mute.
Oh, IJ, could you mute him? Okay, great. Thanks. So I would start by sharing my screen and then we can basically proceed from there. Give me a second. Okay. So share screen. So I hope everyone can see my screen clearly right now. And we would basically start with the implementation. So like I made mention of, today's class, everyone would have to sit tight as we would literally be implementing some things that have not been taught in class before. And then we will take another assignment today. And that assignment would also be submitted tomorrow. So yeah, because okay, this is what we did last, the simple library contract we created last. This is it. So I would close it. So we'll create a new project. So to create a new project, we would start with a Stellar contract in it. And what's the name of the project? The assignment crowdfunding. Okay, so let's name it crowdfunding. Crowdfunding. Funding. Okay, so we didn't spell our Stella well. I was typing faster than I should have. Okay, so we have our projects, crowdfunding. Okay, yeah, it is. So I'm going to seed into it and clear, and then we're going to build this. I say build, we literally open it in VS Code, and here we have it. So we have a new contract claim, and let me increase this, and yeah. So the first things, what are the first things we want to look out for our contracts? First of all, we want to change the name of this contract. To change the name, we already know we change it here. We want to change, let's remove this hello. We are no longer interested in that. We want to change our contract to crowdfunding, right? Crowdfunding. And then great. And change this to crowdfunding. Now, at least let's put a function here. Let me think of a function, initialize, right? Initialize. Definitely we would have an initializer. So let's use initialize here and env token. We don't yet know. Let's just leave this here and let's have this like this. Okay, fine. So we don't have that error disturbing us. So what's the next thing we want to do? Oh, did I use small letter for the env, capital letter? Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we know all of these will contradict the contract we are writing. So let's just comment it out for now. We'll deal with it later. So we don't start having some errors when we are trying to run anything. So what are the things we said we want to do inside of this contract? First of all, as I've always made mention of, is to create a list of what we want to do. We want to name this crowdfunding, right? It's a crowdfunding contract. So for the crowdfunding contract, what are the things we want to do? First of all, we want to be able to create campaigns. Come and fund my campaign. That is, come and fund whatever issue I'm bringing up as a reason for asking for money, basically. Then the next thing is we want to create a function or want to create a functionality that would allow people to contribute. Then what else do we need? We want to create a function that would allow the owner to claim his fund, basically. So claim his fund. What else do we want to do? We want to also create a functionality that will allow us to refund the owner, to refund people their money if the amount we are aiming for is not reached. I think Stephanie actually implemented that. Then we want to be able to check. Let's just add it. We want to be able to check if our goal is reached. Is goal, let's name it is goal reached. Is goal reached? We want to be able to do that. Then another thing we want to be able to do is we want to be able to get all our campaigns, right? So we want to be able to get all our campaigns. So what I've typed out literally even looks like I'm already creating a function. So it looks like we will definitely have a function create campaign. We will have a function contribute. We will have a function claim funds. We have a function refund. Should we have a function is goal reached? Okay, yeah, we should have. So at every point in time, we can be checking if the goal has been reached. Okay, we should have that function. Then another function is get all the campaigns. Basically, we want to be able to get all the different campaigns for the different crowdfunding. Okay, so for this, we are going to start by dealing with errors. Now, we know that our contracts definitely would have errors, and for these reasons, we want to deal with it. How do we deal with our errors? We deal with our errors by creating an error enum. This error enum is basically going to handle whichever error we are expecting for different situations and scenarios. So let's create it. First of all, I think I've created a function initialize here. So I think we would probably need that. So an error for initializing to check if imagine someone is trying to reinitialize the contract again, how do we stop that? There should be an error for it. So I'm going to create an error for that. I'm going to make it enum let's name it crowdfunding error. So for these, the first error, like I said, it should be already initialized. Already initialized. So let's make that the first error. Now, the truth is that we cannot know all the errors we will need at the beginning of our contract. So we are just going to create this down. And then whenever there is an error that we think or feel we need, we will then keep adding to it. We'll keep adding to it, adding to it. But for this error, let's add certain traits to it. So we want to add this contract error to it. Contract error. We want to add contract error to it. We want to add some derive debug macro traits. Derive, and then we want to have clone. Let's add clone, copy and clone. What else? Let's add debug so we can print. What else? Let's add equal. Let's also add partial equal. Then let's add this too. Let's just have it here. We might not need it. We might need it, but let's just have it here. So we started with creation of our error. Now, what's the next thing we want to do? The next thing we want to do should be one of these two things. We want to either start creating a data key for our storage, or we want to first of all create our traits. So now we could think of any of these that we would be creating. So let's think about it. Which should we first create? Should we create our trait first? It's easier to create our trait first since we already have this on ground for us. But then let's try to create our data keys first. I think creating our data keys would probably give us more insights as to what kind of variables we'll be passing in for our traits. So let's just create our data keys. So let's name these errors. And then let's start create our data keys. So for our data keys, let's have it here, data keys. So for our data keys, it's also going to be an enum. So we have an enum. Remember that for that library, if I can remember clearly, I think we were using symbol for data key. Now we are using something else entirely. And that was what I was trying to explain yesterday. The last class we did the library contract, that it's possible for you to use something completely different. So we get that. So we're going to have an enum and we would have the data key. In fact, we can name it data key. So we are for the data key, first of all, we are going to use tokens. So let's store the token we want to use. So definitely we would have a token we accept. So let's store it here. So let's name it accepted token. Accepted token. Okay. Now the next one we want is our campaign count. We want to be able to get all the campaign that we have. So let's have campaign count. Campaign count. The next one is the campaign itself, definitely. So we are going to have the campaign itself. And for this campaign, let's add this. Why? We are adding this because we know that for the campaign, it's going to be a mapping. So we know that for our campaign, we want to make it a 2D mapping whereby we are mapping both the what? The campaign ID to what? To the list, to the campaigns. So each campaign has its own campaign ID. So this is literally how you can now from the interesting thing about it is that from this code base, we are going to learn how to do different things. Now we have seen how we are dealing with our errors. Now we are seeing how we can deal with 2D mapping in Soroban. So with this, you can literally implement, this is literally going to be more like the key to what? To each of the what? Each of the campaigns. So the next thing is also going to be contributions. We want to be able to track the contributions for each of the campaigns. So this is also going to be a 2D mapping. Wait, did I say 2D? I've been mentioning 2D mapping. Sorry, it's just going to be an ordinary mapping. It won't be a 2D mapping. A 2D mapping would be when inside of this, we have something like this inside of it. We have something like struct, and we have, let's say, IDs. Let's name this IDs. And then we have probably ID1, and we have this as U32. Then we have ID2, and we have this as U32 also. Then these IDs, we now pass it in here like this. Now, this is literally a 2D mapping. Yes, this is a 2D mapping. So if imagine you want to do a 2D mapping, probably mapping this to this, then to the value. So this is going to be the key, which is the real, the more like the encapsulating key to what? To the whatever value we are storing inside of it. Because the moment this one change, then the value it's storing literally changes. So this is more like an example of how to do a 2D mapping inside of Soroban. I've been calling this other one 2D mapping. Forgive me for that. It's not a 2D mapping. So I'm going to remove this. I will basically just continue. So the next one I made mention of contribution. We want to be able to track the people that have contributed contribution. So for contribution, it's going to also be U32 because we don't know all of them. We want to track each of them. So the next thing we want to do now is we want to create the campaign struct itself. Yeah, let's create. But for this data key, let's add some traits here. First of all, it's definitely the good thing is that I am not Soroban has made it easier to use this contract type that I'm going to add here. So before you had to literally create, try from, and implement each of these data types. If you look at old Soroban contract, it is actually stressful. I'm glad that we now have this. So for contract type, although that try from implementing all of these data types, it still basically works. But I mean, that's killing. So for this, let's also add more like a derive debug. We are not printing the data keys now. So let's just have clone and copy. It's easier to clone a key and then reuse it again. So the next one is basically the campaigns. So you're going to create the campaigns, and that's definitely going to be a structure. So for this campaign, we're going to make it pub struct and name it campaign. So for it, what are the things inside the campaign? We're going to have the ID of the campaign, which we are going to make U32. We are also going to have the creator who created this campaign. We want to know the person. We are going to keep the address of the person. We're going to keep the address of the person. That's the address type. Then what else? The goal. How much do we want to make? Let's make this one I wanted. I want to it. The goal is literally how much do we want to make from this particular campaign. What was our goal? Then we also want to add deadline. So we have deadline and deadline. We're going to make it U64. Then what else do we want? We want to add amount raised. Amount raised. So let's have raised, and that will be an I want to it also. Then what else do we want to add? Okay, we want to add claimed. Claimed. We want to add claimed. So if a person have claimed his money from the campaign, or even if it's that everybody has been refunded, it should be true or false. So let's make it a Boolean. The person cannot come and claim more than once in our contract. Okay. So you remember this contract is more like a GoFundMe. So you are creating something like a GoFundMe, basically. But before I proceed, I'd like to ask, are there any questions at this point? Anybody not understanding something we have explained up to this point? Are there any questions? You can use the raise hand button if there are questions. But if there are no questions, then we'll basically proceed. Well, give me a second. Let me take water. I'm back. Now we have created this campaign struct. What else do we need to create now? Okay, let's create the trait. Let's create the trait. What are the things that we must implement inside of this contract? We already wrote them up here, so let's create the trait for it. Crowdfunding trait. So what are those things? First of all, we have our initialize. Inside of the initialize, inside the initialize is when we should add the token we want. It's literally when we are creating our construction function, we add our token address. So let's just add it there. So we'd have our token address. And yeah, that's for the initialize. Next function, let's look at this. We said create campaign. So let's have a function create campaign. Yeah. So we would have create campaign. Inside of it, we have AMV. We have the creator, the person creating the campaign. Then the next thing we would have is literally everything that should be inside of here. The creator, the goal, the deadline. I think these are the things we need. Then all of these are later things. So we need the creator, we need the goal, right? So for the goal, it's an I128, right? Then I128. Then what else? The deadline.
Hello, sorry to interrupt. Ayo,
Okay. Okay.
so I have a question. Right on the initialize, I noticed that you passed in E for the environment,
Yes.
of the variable, and on the Soroban smart contract implementation versus the Rust implementation when we're building apps, we would pass in the self keyword and then eventually return it and use that as some sort of way to refer to that structure or the the things that are inside it. So is it because we're using Soroban that's why we're using the env the env keyword?
Yes. That's very correct.
Okay.
If you remember from one of our previous classes where we were trying to explain some of these terms, I basically even mentioned that you should remember to look forward to it when we start writing the code. And that was when I was talking about the environment and I was talking about the host in the environment. And I mentioned that the environment is literally where you would find the host functions, you find the host variables, and all of this is literally what you would be needing. That I mentioned that you have host functions like and host variables that would give you access to things like cryptography, things like hash, things like the instance of the contract itself. You get. Now, remember that this whole thing we are doing is Soroban. We are only trying to use a programming language Rust. You get. And for plain Rust, if we want to implement more like a structure, obviously we use self. But for Soroban, this is what you use, this environment. This, you can put env here. You can name it anything you want. I'm just the one that like writing something short. That I made it E. But you know that
Okay.
the type here is literally environment. And like I said, gives you the access to the host environment and even gives you access to the test state too. So if you are testing, we would basically be using this. You see all of the kind of simulations we want to do, probably the timestamp. Notice that we'll be using timestamp here because of deadline. So things like that would come from here, from the host. And it's all coming from this environment. And it also gives us access to all of these data that is stored.
Okay.
I don't know if
Because
you get that.
I get you now. I get you. I was on the assignment, I was having a hard time. I was facing a lot of compiler errors because of that simple mix-up. I was using the self keyword instead of the environment on the contracts. But yeah, we can move
Oh,
on.
oh, oh, oh. Okay. I'm happy you've gotten that. So now we have the U64, and when we create a simple campaign, should it return anything? Well, let's just leave that as that. When we create a campaign, let it return the ID. Let's make it return the ID. So let's have it as use32. Now, another thing we want to create is contribute. So let's have a function that allows everyone to contribute. Contributes, right? And so for the contribute, we would also be creating the environment. And we want to get the contributor, who is the person sending you the money. We want to get the contributor. The contributor definitely have an address. So we'll be using his address. And so for the contributes, we should be able to know which campaign we want to contribute to. So for this reason, we need to know the campaign ID. So we need the campaign ID for this. And we know for campaign IDs, we've been using U32. U32, where is it? Campaign, U32. So yeah. The next thing is, do we need any other thing for the contribute? Any other thing? Okay, yeah. How can I miss the amount we want to contribute? I want to 8 also. Are we returning anything? Let's leave it like that. Okay, so for the next one, we said claim funds. So people should be able to reclaim their money. So for that, let's have our claim funds. No, did I just say claim funds for people to be able to refund their money? We have refund. The refund is for people to be able to take their money back. Claim fund is based on what we said earlier. We said claim fund is for the owner of the campaign to claim his money after the campaign. If the campaign goes well, or if it doesn't do well, everybody take their money back, basically. So that's basically what claim funds is. So for the claim funds, what do we need inside of the claim funds? What are those things we need? Obviously, we need the environment, ENV, and then we also need the campaign ID for which one we want to claim. Then next up is refund. Okay, refund. For refund, we need the environment, also the person that paid money, the contributor. We want to refund his money. And we also, since we are refunding, we want to know the campaign we are refunding from. So campaign ID. Then the next one is we want to, okay, The next one is goal reached. Before goal reached, I think it's nice if we have a function that gives us the whole campaign data so we can see the campaign details. I mean, imagine you want to have a front end to this thing. It's easier to, just call this function to see all the different campaigns. So it doesn't even have to be all the different campaigns, just one campaign, just passing the campaign ID, and we would then know that, oh, it's this campaign. And here are the information about the campaign. We should be able to get the ID, the creator, the goal, the deadline, and how much the campaign has raised currently. So let's add it. So let's say get campaign details. So we definitely need the campaign ID to get the campaign details. The next function we want to create is basically to check if the goal is reached. This get campaign details. We mentioned that it should be able to return the campaigns. So let's add the campaign is returning here. So is goal reached? Let's check that out. We want the EMV, that's environment, the campaign ID, definitely. And then we want to return a Boolean to know whether the goal is reached or not. Next up is to get all the campaigns available. So to get all the campaigns available, so we would have this. And all campaign available should actually be a vector of campaigns. So this time we are going to remember that we are not keeping it in a vector form. We are keeping it in a mapping form. So we are going to basically, since it's going to be a view function, so it's not going to take in any gas basically. It's not going to take gas like read function basically. So okay. So that is as vector. So at this particular point, I guess it's time for us to start the main implementation. So to start the main implementation, we're going to say contract funding traits, implement contract funding traits for what? For crowdfunding. So now, obviously, we understand why we have this error. We know. And that's basically because we have not implemented all of these traits. So you know what? Let's make our work easier and faster. Don't do this like I always say. Don't copy and paste because I'm about to copy and paste. Try rewriting everything yourself so it sticks to your brain memory. Then to do this, and this, then this, and this. So we no longer have the problem. Okay, we're having a problem here. It says the campaign try from val is not satisfied. Let's look at campaign. Oh, look at campaign. We never added the contract type to campaign itself. So notice that as I'm coding I'm seeing some error and I'm trying to already understand what the error is, and I'm trying to fix the error alongside. So we need to add the contract type. Yeah. So since we are here, let's also in fact add clone. So we should add clone to it. So we would have the derive and then clone. We'll just add clone to it. Okay. So we have some compiler errors still. So let's just add to do to everything. I'll just add to do. No, to do. The to do macro is a lifesaver, literally. Now, notice how I'm coding. It's a completely different style. It could be different from your own style. The way I'm coding doesn't really matter. What matters is you get the job done. So I'm adding to do to it. So one thing I just don't like is I really don't like it when I have my code throwing me so many errors, seeing different red lines. So I've eliminated all of that by adding this to do macro. So let's start implementation. So for the implementation, we are going to basically start from initialize. So for initialize, we're going to check creator. Okay, no. So for initialize, we're going to check if the storage has been initialized before. e.storage dot instance dot as the data key accepted token. If it has it, then we want to log that it has already been initialized. So we're going to say contracts already what? Initialized. So that's basically what we are going to do. Now, if the contract is not initialized, we should then initialize the contract by basically adding this token address to the data key. So to do that, we could do it easily here, but let's just create an helper function. I think I like helper functions. So let's create it here. Let's name this helper functions. Like I said, this is my own style of coding. It could be different from yours. Let's name this one traits. Okay. So for this helper function, let's create an helper function called put token address. So that put token address is literally going to help us, with putting the token address. Token address. Going to be borrowing the environment, and then we'll be putting the token address basically. So how do we do that? We say e dot what? E dot storage dot what? Dot instance dot set. And then the key is what? We use our data key. The data key we are using is what? Accepted token. So what we are setting the accepted token. What's the accepted token? Data key accepted token. What's the accepted token? Accepted token is this token. So we're going to pass in that token in. Yeah. So we've created our helper function. So let's use our helper function here. So we're going to have it here as what did we even name it again? Put token. So we're going to have it here as put token. Put token. And so it's just literally going to take in this token and create it and put it. Let's put this well. And okay, no. It should be here. So the next thing we also want to do is our campaign counts. Let's make it 0. I mean, we are literally just starting. Let's initialize that. So, dot storage and then dot instance dot set, and we have a data key and the campaign count. We have as what? As 0 U32. And with this, we finished our initialize function. So the next one would definitely be create campaign. Okay, so to create campaign, we're going to require authentication. So we're going to say creator dot require auth. Now, I've not spoken so much about this require auth, so let's go inside. Can you see? This is useful when there's only a single address that needs to authorize the contract invocation, and there are no dynamic arguments that don't need authorization. So basically, it's going to check for the person trying to what? Trying to call the function. And that's all it literally does. So this is require auth. So the next thing we want to do is we want to check our goal. Assert that the goal we are creating, the person is not saying he wants to waste our time by telling us that the total amount of money is trying to raise is $0, zero, whatever currency it is. We don't want. We want it to be a huge money specifically. So we must tell the person that, or imagine the person saying he wants to raise a negative amount of money. How does that even work? We want to avoid any of that. We want to tell the person the goal. Let's tell him that it must be positive. Let him have a positive mindset. Goal must be positive. Okay. Also, we want to also check for the time. I think there's a question here. Okay. Someone said I should talk about the log and the panic. Now, I'm going to open it and you're literally going to see what it does. Now, the panic is literally, how do I put it? It's literally a macro. And this macro literally works like the panic. But rather, instead of it to act like panic that quits the program completely, what it does is it basically tells you the error. So you can either use the panic or you use what are they calling it? The log. So you could have said panic and probably even added something and say contract already. Yeah. I'm happy you asked that question Could have done this, right? Let me add to do here. So this doesn't give us session. So you could have think of doing this. You could have thought of doing this, right? I don't know why. I think I need to shut down this system. I think I need to do that. So you could have done this, right? You probably did this. If you look at panic, panic is also a macro too. And once a situation is not matched, all it does is what? It just quits the program completely, unlike the log. So if we try to call this, we want to be able to see that, oh, the contract has been initialized already. So yeah, I'm going to keep using the log. Okay. So now to continue what we were doing, now we've checked to ensure that the person is not passing in zero, that he want, or is not passing in a number, is not passing in -10 or -$1 million, whatever is passing. You want him to pass a positive number greater than zero. Then what else do we want to check? We also want to check that the person doesn't give us a deadline that is, imagine saying he wants to create a campaign and his campaign is ending yesterday. We want to avoid that in our code. What kind of person would do that? So we are going to assert also that that deadline is giving us is greater than the current time or on the what of the timestamp, that is the current date. You can't tell me that you want your campaign to happen last 2 years. You can't travel back in time. So we say it's greater than e dot what dot ledger dot what dot timestamp. Now notice the things I have here. If I use this dot, I have the network ID, I have the protocol version, I have the sequence, and I have the timestamp. So these are some of the things you can get from the ledger, literally. So you know what the sequence is. The sequence is literally the ledger number. Then you know what the timestamp is also. The timestamp is literally what? The current time. So you want to say, no, the deadline should be greater than the current timestamp. And so after saying that, the next thing we want to tell him is, if he doesn't meet that, then we want to tell him deadline must what? Must be in the future. The deadline can't be yesterday. It should be in the future. So we now want to create the campaign for the person. So to create the campaign for the person, we need an ID, and let's create an helper function that would literally help us with ID and incrementing the ID basically. So let's create a function called increment campaign count, or we can name it campaign ID or campaign count, anyone. So what the function will do is it will basically help us store the campaign count and literally implement it and increment it. So let's name it increment campaign count. We have EMV and we have U32. We are going to say let count equals what? For us to actually increment the count, we need an helper function that will help us get the current count. So let's actually create another helper function here and name it get campaign count. Get campaign count. So all that one is going to do is just going to help us get the campaign count, basically. So we would have get campaign what count. I would have this as env, and they should literally get the storage e.storage dot instance dot what dot get, and would use the data key we have here. Which one? Campaign count, right? The current campaign count. So we use dot unwrap or 0. So you should return it. So let's use it here. So let's use get campaign count. We pass that in. So once we get the campaign count, we should increment it, right? So let's just add +1 here. It's going to increment it for us. And then we say e.storage dot what dot instance dot set what dot set. Now we are going to reset the campaign count. So we're going to call this data key to what? To the campaign count. And then we should now add the new count. Now here's the new count. It should have a reference here, and we should be good. And then we want to also return the new count. So let's return count here, and then we are good. Okay, since we are good, now let's come back to our create campaign count function. So for our create campaign count function, we'll basically need the campaign ID. So let's the campaign ID, campaign ID equals what? Our helper function, increment campaign count. So this is going to be reference, and yeah. So we have that count. Still a problem with this. Consider removing the borrow. Why? Did we not borrow it here? Oh, we didn't borrow it. Let's borrow it. We can't have it get on there. Okay, so our problem is solved. Then the next thing is the campaign. So we say let's what? Campaign equals what? Campaign. And then we would have our ID. So our ID should be the campaign ID. Then our creator, we want to add our creator here, this address. Then we want to add the goal. We want to also add the deadline. We want to also add the amount raised. At this point, the amount raised is definitely 0. And then whether he has claimed, at this point, he hasn't claimed. He's just creating the campaign. And then that's it. So we've created our campaign. So the next thing is to put the campaign inside the contract. So like I think we should just create an helper function for that. Put the campaign inside the contract. So for that, we are going to create an helper function. All the helper function is going to do is it's just going to put campaign. We'll name it put campaign. That seems like a nice name. Put campaign. Going to be E and add env. And then you're going to add campaign. Yeah. So what are we doing? Also e.storage dot instance dot what dot set. So we'll be setting it. What are we setting this time? We are setting our campaign. This one. We are setting our campaign. And remember, our campaign is a mapping. So we are setting the campaign what ID to the campaign. So where is it? Yeah. So we're going to say the data key, and then we are going to add the campaign. We're going to add this campaign, and inside of it, we want to have our campaign dot ID. We already know the campaign dot ID. Then we'll be passing in our campaign. So why is this giving us an error? Consider borrowing here. Okay, let's borrow it. Let's borrow it. Okay, we're good to go. So let's come back to our code. So we've implemented putting the campaign inside the mapping there. So what we are just going to do is to call our put campaign function. We're going to add the campaign. And then we should literally return the campaign ID. Campaign what? Campaign ID. What's the problem here? It said campaign. Oh, I named this campaign. Oh my God. And no one corrected me. So with this, we have implemented our what? Our create campaign. Wow. So much code in one day. And we are not yet done. But we'll be stopping here. We'll be stopping here. So are there any questions? Any questions at this point? Any questions? I really don't want us to jam our head too much. So be stopping here. Okay, Mark, please.
Yeah, I think I was left behind from the first helper function when we were trying to find the get campaign count.
Get campaign count. Where?
Be online.
This one?
65. Yeah, you started with the get campaign count first.
Yes.
And,
So I created the get campaign count, then I incremented it by 1. So that every time that a campaign is created, it is always what? It is always incremented. So every time this function is called, this campaign ID increases by 1 here. So it gets the current campaign here, and then it increments it by what? By 1. Now, I created this because I don't know if peradventure later on I might even need this get campaign count. So I just created it. You get. And then I used it here. I added 1 to the current campaign. Notice that I am using the data key to campaign count. So this is the current campaigns, total amount of campaign that we have. And to start is definitely going to be 0. So when we add 0 to 1, this becomes what? 1. And then we are returning the 1, and we are setting the current campaign count to what? To 1. And then we are using that current campaign count as what? As the ID. So each campaign, so the first campaign, its own ID will be ID1. Then the second one, now if the second one comes now and call that campaign function, what happens is that we get the current campaign count, which is 1 at this time, since we've created 1 campaign before. And then we add that 1 by what? By 1. After adding that 1 by 1, we now set the new campaign count to be what? To be 2. Since 1 plus 1 is what? 2. So we set the campaign count to be 2, and then we return the count. And then after returning the count, what we do then is here, we get the current campaign, which is what? 2. And we then use that 2 as what? The campaign ID for this person. And then we return it here.
Okay.
So if
Sorry,
another person, Okay, I'm listening.
Sorry. Can you go back to the data keys? And I want to see its structure one more time.
Yep.
Okay, campaign count. We didn't define whether it's unsigned 32 or signed 32. How is it going to
Remember, this is an enum.
okay?
It's not a struct. If it's
Oh,
a struct, the field elements are like this. You can decide to create anything you want for an enum. Remember that enum are more like selections.
okay.
You getting it
Thank
right?
you.
Okay. Great one, Mark. Great one. Any other person with questions? If there are no questions, so we'll then be stopping here. So I'll stop sharing my screen. I would send IG the next question that is for us to implement. And then tomorrow we would continue this one. Now, the truth is that with the total amount of questions we have, I don't think it's possible to implement everything at once. You get? So I will give you people and you would keep implementing and then we would keep solving in class. Although the time you have to yourself to implement is more than the time we have for the class. So you definitely have to work harder to implement it yourself. And then whichever ones we're able to finish implementing in class, then we implement it in class. If not, you basically get the solution afterwards. So thank you very much, everyone. I'll stop sharing my screen here. I'll hand over to IG and she'll round up the class for today.